just so we can meet. And let me introduce myself. My name is Kim Garst. I'm an online business strategist, and I'm very passionate about helping online business owners grow their businesses, increasing their bottom lines using the power of digital and social media. And today we're going to talk to a Facebook ads pro, somebody who is going to really break down how you split test your Facebook ads. So if you are like leery of Facebook ads, don't feel lonely. There's a lot of people out there who are, saying, yeah, I know I need to be using Facebook ads, but I'm not exactly sure how to do them. And certainly I don't know how to split test. Like, what is that even? So our special guest today is going to share her wonderful wisdom with us. I can't wait to introduce her to you. So give me a second on that. Like all of our marketing that grows the business, all marketing that grows your business shows, we do some giveaways. So one of those giveaways is this little webcam thing. It slides over your webcam on a laptop so that people can't spy on you. Evidently, that's a big problem these days. And then we also do a ring light. Fits over the top of your camera, so you have an always on light source if you want to take some amazing photos. So both of these are some giveaways that we do. We're also giving away our guest speaker's latest book, which is Facebook Ads Made Simple. So you'll have an opportunity to win that book as well. You can see it here on the screen with our lovely guest, Andrea Vahl, on the cover. And then we also are giving away our sponsor, who is easel.com. They are gifting 3 winners today with 3 months of easel.com. If you're not familiar with easel.com, let me share a little bit about it and why I love it. It is a graphic design tool. One of the things that is what I feel is one of their strongest features is their pre-designed content. The content that's already designed. They have professional graphic designers who create amazing content. So you can log in, sign up, log in, and if you need a post for your social media or you need something else, it's a great place to have some really quality pre-designed content at your fingertips. So check that out, kimgarst.com/easel. And 3 winners will be chosen today for a 3-month trial. So how do you get chosen as a winner? If you hear something that is like, aha, like, oh my gosh, that was so great. I didn't know that. Or, I knew it, but it just, I needed to hear it again. Drop in aha into that little area down there, and we will make sure that one, we will see them, and then the winners are chosen from those comments. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. We love questions. I do have some questions, but just to keep the conversation flowing, but we want to hear from you. So if you have questions, definitely ask your questions. We'll make sure that we try to get those answered to the best of our abilities. So how is everybody? And are you ready for our special guest today? I'm super excited about her. We've been friends for like a long time. I was trying to remember when we first met. And like many of those in my sphere, if you will, it started with social media marketing world. So I'm pretty sure that's where Andrea and I met. But I want to share a little bit about Andrea, and I'm going to ask her to talk about her transition when I bring her on. But let me share a little bit about her. She is a Facebook ads pro. In fact, we're going to pull her bio up so you guys can take a look. She's a social media consultant and a speaker, so she speaks and shares her wisdom all over the world. She's a co-author of the Facebook Marketing All-in-One for Dummies book. So yes, she's an author of one of those dummies book, right? I think that's so incredible. She speaks and trains all over the world, and she's appeared in top lists like entrepreneur.com and inc.com. And this is what's really fascinating about her. She He is a stand-up comedian, guys. And I really want you guys to give a warm welcome. Put your hands together for Andrea. Hey, Andrea.
Hey, that's so nice, Kim. That's awesome. Love it. Love it. And it's so funny because you know what? I think it was social media marketing world. I feel like I feel like I might have met you through Grandma Mary first. I'm not sure though.
Yes,
I,
yes, I think so. So let's just talk about Grandma Mary for a second. So Grandma Mary is Andrea's alter ego when it
Alter
comes to social.
ego. Yeah.
He's the grumpy side of Andrea, and we had a photo of her because it would be kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were talking about Andrea's the other side to her personality, which is
Yeah.
her comedian side, which comes out in Grandma Mary. For those of you
Yeah.
who've not seen Grandma Mary before, you can probably Google it and you'll find a photo of Grandma Mary. So you might even find it on her website somewhere. Um,
It's
but
yeah.
it, but recently, and I want to share this story. I'll have you share the story. I know you do. So share a little bit about your that coming, really embracing that side of
Yeah.
yourself, and
Right.
and how do you use it? So share a little bit
Right.
about
So,
that.
I mean, I think that's definitely been part of my success is that, it was kind of this thing where I love comedy and I love marketing. I did improv comedy, now I do stand-up comedy. And I thought, I want to make this fun for me too. And I was noticing there weren't any fun and funny tutorials out there. So I said, why don't I make it a little less scary, because sometimes Facebook marketing is scary. And use one of my characters from my improv. So I chose Grandma Mary, and Grandma Mary's motto was, "If Grandma Mary can do it, then you can do it too." So, um, so that was kind of the how that came about. But then, not a few years ago, I Grandma Mary kind of retired. She didn't die. I tell people she didn't die. She kind of retired. I think it was hitting a little too close to home as I started getting more wrinkles and I started needing her glasses. And I'm like, I think she has to retire and I'll just do stand up. So that's been a fun thing. But I always feel like if you really embrace something that is unique about you and bring it into your business and really share something more personal, you can really connect with people in a different way and people can really relate. And I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, "Oh, I've always wanted to do like Uncle Bob or something like that." And I'm like, you can do it. That's her grandma's whole motto. If Grandma Mary can do it, then you can do it too. So that's
Yeah.
including marketing, including anything fun for your business. And I think that makes us so much more relatable and more fun.
I totally agree. And we just had Andrew and Pete on Thursday. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
same
Speaking of fun.
concept of really showing up and bringing, I call it edutainment just because that's my Southern
Yeah.
slang for edutainment. But it works, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
huge piece, I think, of how people can relate more realistically to us. So I think
Yeah.
that's something we just have to start to not to shy away from. Now,
Yeah.
before we get into Facebook ads, I'm excited about this for you. So I know that you said recently you submitted a video to the Ellen Show. So
Yeah.
and you got a call back. So
Yeah.
so tell everybody about that.
That's fun. So it's Ellen's Game of Games. It's her game show, and it's just really kind of wild and crazy. And you had to show your enthusiastic side. And I was like, I was kind of born for this show. So I really pulled out all my enthusiasm, and it was had to be a 2 minute clip. So it's really short, and you had to say certain things. It was a lot of fun to make it, but I only had a day to submit the tape, so it was pretty quick. But it all came together well, and who knows? We'll just see. I'd love to have them call, and it'd be cool to just get that kind of experience and just fun. You got to do things to are fun for you. That's it.
Yeah. And then all of us that are watching will be able to say, I know her. I know her. Which is kind of clever. If you see somebody on national TV, you're like, oh my
I
gosh,
know.
how many times can you say, I know that person?
Yeah.
So that kind of would be a cool thing. So I'm wishing you lots of luck on that. I hope
Oh,
it
thanks.
comes about, and we'll be cheering you on. Elevate, bringing more awareness to that as you evolve,
Yeah.
because that's what social media friends do. We tell everybody, we tell all our peeps about it. So okay, so I wanted to start with like how you've taken your business totally from some different angles over the years, and now you're
Yeah.
focused exclusively on Facebook ads. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lesson in that for those that are watching or listening, in that you can pivot, your business can
Yeah.
evolve. So can you share that journey just a little bit? Like, how did you first start, and then to like fast forward a little bit to how
Right.
you just really keyed in on Facebook ads?
Right, right. Yeah, and that's a definitely good for anyone who's worried. Like, I think that stops people a lot of times. Like, they think they have to pick the best thing that they can't change. They think that there's only one right way for them to do something. And oftentimes it's really about just launching and then adjusting, because that's how it happens so often. So I started out doing all social media. And back then, back in the day, there were only like 4 social sites. And so it was a little easier, but 3 or 4 that I was focusing on. So I was always gravitating more towards Facebook ads. And as things have gotten more complex, when I started, there were no Facebook ads. There were no YouTube. Well, I don't know if there. I don't know. I think there were YouTube ads. Even there were no Twitter ads. No, nothing like that. It was all organic. And so, it was easier to cover more things. And as the things have gotten more complex, especially Facebook ads, I really just decided I have to narrow down, because I can't keep up with all the different changes, and things change more rapidly, including Facebook ads. So, and even within Facebook ads, I've gotten to really kind of niche down a little bit more towards, I oftentimes help people launch an online course. That's one of my kind of main specialties. Some people specialize more in e-commerce, and I do e-commerce ads for some of my clients and do really well with it. But I really kind of love the launch energy. So that's part of what I love doing, is helping people launch courses. And so you can specialize, you can change, you can pivot, and you can adjust what you're doing, and realize it's a combination of what you really love and what you're really good at and what the market really is demanding. So that's all 3 things need to be there I think, for a successful business.
I so agree. And one of the things I really loved about what you just said was how you can niche within a niche too,
Yeah.
where you are
Yeah.
like, okay, I do Facebook ads, but I really love helping people launch their
Yeah.
course, right? So
Yeah.
there's a whole business there. Like if you could
Yeah.
just do, help people launch their courses,
Yeah.
that would be it,
Yeah.
right? But you're doing
Yeah.
Facebook ads. And then you have just niched down. So Paul was
Yeah.
just saying, basically, I call that, he says, launch, then adjust. I call it do it messy, where just
Yeah.
get it
Right.
out of the world, and then
Right.
you can adjust, and
Right.
refine and iterate it. Because
Yes.
if you wait until it's perfect, it's never perfect, right?
No.
Things.
And
Um,
people, and that's it. People compare these, like, businesses that have been going for a long time, and they think, I got to do it just like that. Well, that business has been around for 10 years. And, when I started, I had this terrible product. This is my first product. It was awful. My lighting was all weird. I was just like, it was totally messy. I launched it and I got, I think, 3 sales, and it was exciting. It was like, oh, wait, I can build on this, right? So it's about just doing it messy, like you said. We were talking about also like doing it scrappy, just like doing it, it doesn't, you don't have to have all the tools. You don't have to have it, all the perfect logos everywhere. And, of course you want good branding and good, consistent stuff, but you don't have to have spend tons and tons of money, because you may not know that it works yet.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's super important for us to understand as entrepreneurs that things can be messy. It doesn't always have to be perfect. I'm a recovering perfectionist, so that has been something I've had to learn, and I have to learn almost every day. Okay, so let's just. Oh, yeah. So, what kind of
Oh, yeah.
advice would you give a company who keeps having their ads account shut down? So, that's a great question. We haven't got into the actual split testing piece of this, but I know that's
Right.
a core problem for so many. So,
Right.
what would you say to people who are constantly getting their ad account shut down?
Yeah, so for that, I think it depends on the type of business. You always have to make sure that you're within Facebook's terms and really understand those terms really well because you can be in there's businesses that are pretty restrictive, such as weight loss or anything financial, even things that are work from home. Facebook is very, very specific about what you can and can't do there. So you need to really dive deep into those terms so that you can understand them, so that you can really uh, come back to Facebook's help area and say, I know that this ad is within my terms. Now, within your terms. So if your account gets shut down and you're not even in one of the businesses that are a little more challenging, then you have to kind of ask yourself what is going on there. And I would say definitely get with Facebook chat in that situation. And the Facebook chat line is at business.facebook.com/business/help. So it's kind of a long, that's the most direct way. You can get there like lots of different ways, but that's the most direct way. And then there's a chat feature kind of there. Sometimes it's not available. Sometimes you have to like submit something more through their form, and then they'll get back to you. But if something weird is going on, you might have to like really examine, well, do I need to, change, have a different type of credit card attached to this, or something weird going on with, the setup or something like that. That's usually kind of, that's a little unusual. But if for some businesses, it is, if you're kind of in one of those more challenging businesses, you have to just really get familiar with the terms so you know that you're running ads that are within their terms, so you're not endangering your account of being shut down.
And sometimes I think, especially recently, I've noticed that the bots are a little bit more active and
So
ridiculous.
aggressive.
Yeah, they're
Yes,
so
so
aggressive
aggressive.
right now. So don't hesitate to push back if you feel like that
Yes,
you are in the right. Now, it may
exactly.
take a few days because Facebook is not known for great customer service. Let's just put it out. But definitely ask for a human to review whatever, because they
Yeah,
will usually review it and get back to you.
yeah,
Normally, I mean, I've had my account shut down several times, and I
yeah,
just go through
yep,
the process, and
yeah,
hey, listen, what's the deal? And so
right,
far, knock on wood, I've been able to get it turned back on.
right, right.
So it's, but I think the terms are of service, and understanding those, like Andrea said, is so important.
Yeah,
And then knowing that you can push back. Don't just accept it if you feel like you are in the right,
right.
or you don't
Exactly.
know, if you don't know why. So
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
just educate yourself in the, yeah, that's good.
All right, so let's actually dive into a little bit about the split testing concept,
Yeah,
because I think the concept of split testing, let's dig into that first. Like, for those who may not
right.
understand what split testing is, how would you describe split testing?
Yeah, so basically, what you're doing is you're taking an ad and you're only changing one thing about it and running it in a separate running two different ads where you have just one thing changed. So for example, it may be that we're going to test the audience and we're going to keep the ad the same, the headline the same, and the image the same, but we're just going to change the keyword or the audience that we're targeting it to. So that is split testing the different audiences. And you know that when you come back and have a difference between your cost per result, that the only thing you changed was the audience. And so that is what made the difference. So one ad, one audience will get you cheaper results than the other one. And now you can build on that. Again, the whole like launch, then iterate, right? So it's launching the ads, then, making an educated guess on what types of things you want to test and what types of things will resonate with your audience. And then testing that and kind of looking at the results really objectively and systematically. Now, because if you said, okay, we're going to have a different audience with a different image and a different headline, you're not going to know which thing made the difference there between those two ads as far as which one got better results. So you have to be really systematic about how you're testing. And there is a Facebook split test feature, which we can talk about a little bit. But you can also do this sort of manually too, where you're setting up the plan for what you're going to test. And it might be like, okay, let's test some different audiences first. And then we'll try same audience and now try two different images. And we're going to see which image gives us better results.
Okay, so the value essentially to split testing is so that you can know what affects the changes and
Right.
like, okay, if it's audiences, like this audience over here is obviously converting higher than this audience, boom. Now I know that I
Right.
need to create more of that audience, right? So
Right.
what types of things can you split test? Like outside of an audience and maybe, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. So, I mean, just
Yeah.
as a general thing, like just to give people that may not understand,
Yeah.
give them a couple
Yeah.
of examples.
Yeah, so the hard thing with split testing is that you can test like everything. You can test, split test different placements. You could say, does Instagram versus Facebook work? Or does Facebook newsfeed work versus Facebook stories? Or, so there's placements, there's headlines. You can say this headline versus that headline, the text in the ad itself, writing different text, long text versus short text, videos versus images, different images, so, and then of course, then the myriad of different keywords or audiences like lookalike audiences or different targeting or targeting pages versus job titles. So it gets very quickly to be overwhelming and say, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure out what is actually going to work here? Because I could test a million different things and I don't have that kind of budget, which I think we're going to get into a little bit. But
Yeah,
you can even test
into
like the
that.
little button. Yeah, we can even test like the little button, sign up versus download, or, all kinds of learn more versus whatever.
Okay, so like my head's even spinning. Like
Yeah,
I do Facebook ads, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like usually when I never considered it to the degree, like I know we do it, but like, when I think split testing, I think like headline and your images and,
yeah,
core things like that, not to all the nitty gritty. And now I'm like,
right.
oh my gosh, like
I
for
know, it's
somebody who's like,
scary.
oh man, where would you suggest you start versus
Yeah,
all I mean, the nth degree kind of
tiny
thing. What's
minutia. Yeah,
that
minutia.
little
Yeah.
piece?
Right. So the biggest bang for your buck when you're testing, if you have a limited budget, where you're going to test are the audience, the keywords and targeting. That's a big bang for your buck right there. And then the next biggest bang for your buck is in images. And then I would say, oftentimes placement is the next biggest bang, and then text. So sometimes people think, oh, I've got to write all these different ads, and that can come into play for sure. But if we're talking like biggest difference makers, that's what I typically see um, is I test the start with the targeting and test that first, and then move down the ladder and say, okay, let's see if I've got, a bigger budget, or if I'm finding ad fatigue, I might try something different and say, okay, let's try Instagram by itself and let's test that on its own versus versus Facebook.
I love that. And one of the things that I wanted to key in on, because I think a lot of people need to know this, is when it comes to the end user engaging with an ad. And something that you said was one of the biggest value propositions when it comes to testing is the image. Most people, when
Hmm.
they're like scrolling through their feeds, the first touch point with an ad is that image. So that
Yeah.
image is has got to be it's got to convert. If that image doesn't
Right.
convert, so they go from the image to the headline or the copy, but that image is so important. So I highly
Yeah.
recommend that you do. Would you recommend that too? Really keen in on the
Yeah.
image as a media,
Yeah.
as one of the things that you definitely split test.
Right, right, for sure. And I think that's where a lot of people don't do. A lot of people don't. Have one image, and then they're like, "Yeah, that didn't work." And you have to vary them. It's not just like I'm going to have one image that is has a blue border and one image that has a pink border. No, it's not. You've got to make them very different so that you're really kind of examining it. And the kind of interesting thing is there's no hard and fast rules like, oh, all images with blue backgrounds do well. And I guess wrong all the time. I've had images that I thought were so cute, like especially I looked really cute in them, and no, they didn't convert that well. And I'm like, trying not to take it personally, but it's okay. You just have to really say that, hey, the numbers don't lie here, and that's why we have to test because we guess wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I've definitely saw things many times where they didn't work out the way I thought they would. So Sandy's saying, split testing, I want to try that. However, do you feel like they say you get results or inflate the numbers, but you actually haven't shown an increase in sales?
Yeah, yeah.
There's other
That's
variables to that,
I
right? That's a
yeah,
loaded
that's
question.
it's a problem because first of all, it can be a problem for a couple different reasons. Facebook will highlight things that aren't as important. So sometimes Facebook's saying, "Hey, you reached 5,000 people, isn't that great?" Well, that's not what you want to do. You want the sales, right? So you have to make sure that you're first of all tracking the right things and have the pixel tracking in place to track the right things, and that your system is set up as well as it can be. Facebook will typically inflate the numbers, but it's not Facebook's doing that like, just because. It can be the way the pixel fires. And you'll notice this if you do Google ads, if you do Pinterest ads, if you do any type of advertising, they can sometimes have different numbers, and they track that pixel fire differently. So it might say that, hey, you got 20 leads when actually you only got 18 because maybe somehow the pixel double fired. If you're in your system and Facebook says you got 20 leads in your ad, and you look in the back of your system and you can see that only 2 people opted in, you've got a problem somewhere with your flow, and you need to check to make sure that people aren't going back to the same page unnecessarily, or that your lead pixel or whatever it is isn't installed incorrectly or in multiple places where it shouldn't be. So some of it could be Facebook, some of it could be the way you set things up. So there always will be a little bit of an inflation typically that I've seen. I have had a couple of clients where we were like right on the money because of the way they set up their funnel, but usually it is a little bit higher, and there's just nothing you can do about that. That is across the board with any advertising system typically.
So true. And another thing that you have to be aware of, and this is going to be tough love, is that if Facebook is sending traffic to your landing page, and you're not getting the conversions or the sales that you're looking for, then it's
Yeah,
most likely something on that page. It is
right.
something is not converting, because the
Yeah,
traffic piece is working. It's just broke when it gets
right.
to your landing page. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're getting quality traffic, then you need to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, right, exactly. And if people are, I mean, it can sometimes be like a little bit of a targeting mismatch. If you're targeting everyone on Facebook and they're just curiosity clicking, or you're getting, sometimes you have to make sure your targeting's on point, and you've got to look at that landing page for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes you just assume that, oh man, Facebook ads aren't working because they're not
Yeah.
creating the sale. But you have to really look at the entire
Yep.
the entire picture. I don't know why that came out just like that, but it did. Okay. So I know we just had a question about budgeting. So give me
Yeah.
just a minute. We're going to get into that. Before we do that, I wanted to talk about, and you mentioned it. I know Facebook is really trying to help us as business owners to do this, to do the split testing. So, do you recommend using their split test functionality versus trying to figure this
Yeah,
all out?
right. If you do with anything in Facebook, you have to kind of know what you're doing is the hard thing. Facebook tries to make it easy, like you said. And I actually used to not recommend that split testing feature. It's a little limited, and it doesn't allow you to test everything in this quite the same way. It used to be that you couldn't turn it off, and now you can. So that's kind of nice. But like, if that is easier for you and you feel comfortable with the flow of that split test, then yes, you can use it. I don't use it because I have been doing it myself, and I like, there's lots more nuances to setting it up your own way and making sure that everything is the way you want it. But like, it's an easy way to kind of quickly test two different images, for example, or maybe some different targeting. I think they've got the targeting in there. For a while, it was just like the actual ad itself. But yeah, so you can use that if you make sure you kind of know how you're setting up. I've seen people set it up incorrectly and then they get weird results. And so that's what you always have to make sure is you know enough to be able to interpret the results too in the right way, so that you're then going forward with the best performing ad or audience.
And I think, just being totally transparent with Facebook ads is they are, have many facets and a lot of nuances, and don't give up the first time around. You got to keep iterating, just like we've talked about iteration. You've got to keep
Yeah.
trying. You will learn as you go, based off of things. And you'll get better at them, but don't give up, because so many people do. They're
Right.
like, oh, well, this doesn't work. Well, throw in the towel
Right.
on that.
Right. Yes.
So it's important to know that it's going to be a learning process for you. The key to this, in my opinion, is so that you don't lose a lot of money on the front side, which is why I want to talk about budgeting. Is that you educate yourself as much as you can about the process. It doesn't mean you're going to get it 100% the first time. Nobody usually does. You
Right.
you do learn as you go. But when it comes to not losing your shirt, let's talk about the money for a second. So Isabel was asking about, should you have a budget for
Yeah.
split testing? Should you?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the budget question is such a tough thing because it can be very different for different industries. For example, if you're in real estate, your cost per lead is probably going to could be somewhere between 25 to $50. Not always. It depends on how you're getting those leads or what you're offering as a lead magnet or what you're doing there, but that's kind of something I've seen as a more common um, price point there. The If you're like offering a free ebook or a little checklist or something like that, then your cost per lead is going to be a lot lower. But that again, it can depend on the industry. If you're talking to financial services versus marketing, those are two very different businesses. So you kind of have to understand what your baseline is. So typically what I tell people is just start really slow and run, like, just say pick two or three different things that you might test. Maybe it's two different audiences, and then you're also going to throw in another image in there. So essentially we're testing three things because we're first testing the audiences with the same image, then we'll run the best performing audience with a different image. And that would be an iteration there, and we'd learn something, right? And we learn what your baseline is, we'd learn like what your cost per lead is and which audience did the best and which image did the best. And for that, I usually suggest let's just start with $50 for each of those, buckets. So it'd be like, or it could be even a little less. Maybe it's like $5 a day at for 5 days, for example. So it's somewhere between, for 3 tests, it'd be somewhere between $75 and $150 for that. And you'd run the ad slowly. You could run it $5 or $10 a day for 5 days, and then you could test at the same time with the audiences, and then you could then run the image ad for 5 days after that, for example. So that would be an example of a really pretty basic split test plan that wasn't too high cost, and you'd come out of that with hopefully some leads, and hopefully you'd learn something. So that's a good way to start.
So that was my next question, is how long do you run a split test? So I think a lot of times, like when I first started, I remember like freaking out. I'd set up the ad and then I go look like 2 hours later and I'd be like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. So let me fix
Yeah,
this, right? That's your first inclination is,
yeah,
oh my gosh, I'm wasting a bunch of money or whatever.
I know.
So
Yeah.
my first, don't touch anything for how long?
I usually say don't touch anything for 2 days. Typically more like 3 days. 2 days. After 2 days, I feel like you can get a pretty decent viewpoint as far as, and it depends again on the budget. If you're only doing $5 a day, then I would say definitely don't touch it for 3 days. You can afford $15 to let that ad run, and you're not getting a lot of data through that. So you need to run it a little longer. But, usually I say a lot can happen in 2 days, but I typically don't see an ad completely recover and just go the other way if it's kind of tanking out of the gate. And by tanking, I mean like 0 leads or 0, then it's time to evaluate. If you're getting clicks over there, there's lots of troubleshooting things that you can do. First of all, like, are you getting click-through rates? Are you getting clicks to your website and they're not converting? So there's a lot of troubleshooting that is available to do to say, okay, where's the problem? But yeah, usually I say don't touch it for 2 to 3 days and let it just do its thing and settle in, especially for
Yeah.
new accounts, new pixels, things like that.
Yeah, I love that because I think that's super important because, again, we are looking at it. We're like, oh my gosh, I need to fix this. So Catherine's asking,
Yeah.
do you need to split test videos on which you appear to?
Yeah,
You need
so
to.
definitely, I mean, yeah, split testing videos is a good idea. I have right now, I'm running some ads for a client where we're testing, she has a gardening niche. And so we're testing 2 different types of videos. One's more of a teaching video and one is kind of more of a quiz type video. But it's hard because with videos, there's so much different content. It's not like, anytime she talks about sweet potatoes, that's going to be bad. It's not necessarily that way. So it can be like a combination of different things there. And sometimes I find that video ads oftentimes don't convert as well as single image ads. So I'm using video ads more at like kind of the top of the funnel where we're building an audience. We're kind of growing an audience that we're going to use for maybe a retargeting or lookalike audience with video views. And then anytime I'm really looking for a conversion or a sale, I'm using a image ad. And that's kind of a generalization. I think video ads can work well with certain things like product demos, but in general, I mostly find better conversion costs for image ads. But sometimes people like just even making one video is like totally overwhelming. So the thought of making 2 videos is like to test is really scary. So it kind of depends on how you're going to use that video and really how you want to get into that, how much you want to get into that part of the testing.
Yeah. So I'll just share quickly something that we're doing because I think it's so relevant to what you just said. Exactly what you just said, in that we're using videos at the top of the funnel, meaning, trying to attract as many people to that content as possible. And then we're
Yeah.
retargeting those video views, and not just
Yeah.
any video view. Like, obviously, if somebody hits on it and it's a 3-second view, like, to me, that's not value based. I'm looking for people who
Yeah.
have at least listened to the content for a period of time, and then I
Right.
can retarget them with something that stays in that same lane, that
Mm-hmm.
had something to do with that video content. And that's a little bit more of it's smart because the touch points that are required for people these days when it comes to an actual conversion is a lot deeper. It used to be 7, like that used to be the
Yeah.
number, and now in the online space it can be up to 30. I mean,
I
so
know. It's like 150 times you have to get in front of that.
it's way higher these days in the online
Uh,
space because we're competing
yeah.
for attention, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times people are resistant to spending money when there's no return on it, or at least they think there's no return. So when you're putting content out there, whether you're sending it to a blog post, for example, and the end goal is to retarget those visitors back to something when they come back to Facebook, there's sometimes a
Mm-hmm.
resistance to that concept because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just wasting money because I'm not making money with this.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
just saying, I'm here to tell you that that strategy does work, and
Yeah.
the conversion rate on that is much higher sometimes because that they've already have had a touch point with you, versus
Right.
just a cold, like, who are you, like, why are you showing up in my feed kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't be scared of spending some money on things that don't have an immediate return on, or at least in your mind you're thinking, I don't have an immediate return on that, I'm just spending money, I'm throwing money out the door. You're not, but you do have to
Yeah.
have a plan to retarget it. So I just thought
Right.
I'd like throw that in there real quick.
So true.
Okay, so when it comes to like our budgeting, if, let's say, for example, we have a couple of different ads that we're running, maybe we're testing the audience, and that's the first place. Okay, so here's an ad, we're testing 2 different audiences, and we discover through that testing process that we spent 3 days on it, this is our winning audience. What next?
Yeah. Yeah. So what you want to do next is really then say, let's now what else can we test? We might test different images in that case, or different text, like long text versus shorter text. And actually, I have found that longer story form text can do a lot better. Not often at the like retargeting for the sale. Usually, people are familiar with you, especially then you can just like drive them to the sale, or, and e-commerce as well. But for other types of businesses, treating that ad as more like almost like a mini landing page in that case. It's that they're going to read this and kind of learn about you, learn about the problem where you're really agitating that problem, and talking about the solution you have, and whatever your lead magnet is, or whatever, if you've got a webinar, or if you've or even just a blog post, getting them over to get more content from you. You could test text, you can test headlines. And then I would also look at testing placements. So for example, I have some lead magnets that happen to work better on Instagram rather than Facebook. So I run them mostly on the Instagram only feed and it's kind of funny to me because I'm talking about Facebook stuff, but I mean, it all applies because Instagram and Facebook have the same ad platform. But, I've learned that, and I want the most cost-effective leads in that case. So that's what you're testing next.
It's a really good strategy, actually. Love
Yeah.
that. So I know a lot of times people will ask this question, and I'm curious as to what you think about it. When it comes to prioritizing our results, like if we're looking at our results, understanding what we should be looking at, what matters, is it from a priority standpoint, is it like cost per conversion or cost per click?
Yeah. I'm usually only looking at one metric, and that is my cost per results. That's typically all I care about. I will look at, I never care about the cost per click. I really don't. I don't. Facebook kind of adjusts that. It depends. I look at click through rate is my other thing that I look at to say, and it's link click through rate, not just overall click through rate. I want to see, are they getting to my site? Are they getting over there? I want to make sure that that link click through rate is over 1%. If it's not, you may be either not, your ad is kind of boring. It might be that you are, your targeting could be off, but it also could be that you're in a more challenging niche. So my, dentist client that I had, we were never over 1%, I think, in click-through rate. So link click-through rate. So I'm only optimizing around the best cost per result. And so whatever you've got that set at as your cost per lead. If I'm doing e-commerce where people are purchasing on the site, then I'll look at return on ad spend a little bit more, because I want to make sure that because when they get to the site, they can buy different things. And so I will look at return on ad spend and optimize around that. But you have to have all the setup with your pixel and the cost for the products and things like that all set up, your maybe product catalog, for example. So that's a little bit different. But yeah, you can track all this stuff, and you can track people that have opted in from the lead and then later made a purchase. So those kind of things can get tracked.
Yeah, and something you just said, and I think it's super important from an expectation standpoint, is understanding what's normal. Like, what should
Yeah,
your conversion rates be? So, one thing you
right.
just said is, if you're optimizing for, the actual transaction itself, like the cost per conversion, is
Yeah.
it for? Let's just use a couple of general things like a webinar lead. In your experience, what would that normally cost somebody? Just to give them
Yeah.
some general
Right,
numbers.
right.
General.
Yeah.
Keep that in
And
mind.
I
We're
think
saying
that
general.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And I think that they've heard, like, you sometimes will hear crazy things about, oh, I'm getting 10-cent leads or blah, blah, blah. And that's usually an anomaly. So I think people then shoot for that and think, well, I'm going to get 10-cent leads all day long. So you do have to know first of all, what is normal, but then you also have to know your baseline, because it could be different for you. So webinar leads, I have found anywhere between, I had one client, we were getting him super, super cheap. That was really an anomaly. And it also was happening during some of this crisis situation. So we were getting him at 20 cents. That's extremely unusual. Typically what I see is anywhere from like $1.50 is really on the low end. That's an industry that can be more interesting sometimes. And then like $10 is kind of on the more normal higher end. And that can be like more of a B2B, more focused audience where we're trying to reach a little bit more of a niche audience in that case. So given those lead costs, you have to really make sure that you are then selling on that webinar, you're making those leads profitable, and you have very clear steps on what they should do and how they should purchase from you, so that you make sure you're getting the return for your money. And some of it will be a building thing. Some of it will be like, think about when you've come into someone's sphere and you watched a webinar but then didn't buy anything for 6 months. So that does happen, and you have to realize there is a building thing in your list. It's still valuable to build your list, but you need to make that profitable right away by making sure the numbers all work with the cost per lead that you are getting.
Such a great answer, and I love that we set that expectation for people. I think sometimes people assume that it's going to be cheap, and sometimes it's just not. So, do you ever
Yeah.
split test ABO versus CBO, and can you explain those
Yeah.
terms? As I think
Yes.
some will be like, "What is that?"
Yeah, all the time. And that is a really great thing to split test, because you might find, okay, let me just back up and say what it is. So
Okay.
ABO is ad set budget optimization. And that is where historically the budget has been set at the ad set level. Facebook has a hierarchy of campaign level where you say what your objective is, such as leads or traffic or something like that. Then at the ad set level, just below that, that's where you're setting up the audience, the targeting, and the budget. And then at the lowest level, the ad level, that's where you're putting in the image, the text, the headline, what the ad looks like. So those are the three levels. And historically, Facebook has been set the budget at the ad set level. They last year said that, oh, we're going to do campaign budget optimization, which means we'll decide where the budget gets allocated underneath that campaign level, and you can have multiple ad sets and multiple ads under there, and we'll find the best one. Well, they don't do that. Okay, that's why we have to be Facebook. Facebook's algorithm is getting better, but it's still not perfect. And oftentimes they're allocating more of the budget to the wrong thing. Facebook has an explanation for that, but I find that I just sometimes a little too much of a control freak. So I need to like manage that a little bit more. And I do find that you get better results typically. Some people, so I do test campaign budget optimization versus ad set budget optimization to allocate that budget and dedicate that budget to that audience. I typically find that Facebook will often do a good job if you lookalike audiences underneath your campaign. So for lookalike audiences, and then you're letting Facebook optimize within that. And so if I have a campaign where I'm going to use something like that, or 3 or 4, then I'll set that up with campaign budget optimization, and let's see how Facebook does. And if it doesn't feel like it's doing the right thing, I might then switch over to ad set budget optimization and set the exact allocations I want it to have. So yeah, that's a good thing to test. It's just a little more advanced in making sure that you know what you're looking at and how you're evaluating the results.
And one thing I wanted to circle back to real quick, thank you for that great answer. When it comes to understanding the value, long-term value of somebody that you paid for that came through paid ads versus randomly they bumped into you or some other campaign or anything of that nature, I think it's super smart for us as marketers to understand that we need to tag um, our people, that how they come into
Yeah.
our ecosystem. So if you're using paid ads, for example, you need to tag them in your CRM if your CRM allows for that, so that like the value of that. Let me explain the value of that. To Andrea's point a minute ago, she said, 6 months from now, somebody has come to a webinar that you got through a paid ad. They came in, said yes, they want to come to the webinar, didn't buy anything, but 6 months down the road, they do buy something. Now, keep in mind that that person likely they weren't on your list already, so they didn't really know who you were, didn't have a no like and trust factor with you until they saw the Facebook ad, they came to your webinar.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but you continue
Mm-hmm.
to nurture them, and 6 months down the road, they buy something from you. So that
Right.
cost, that customer acquisition cost, fancy slang for how you got them, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it cost you on the high end. Let's just say it cost you $15 to get them, as a lead. But then 6 months down the road, they bought something that was $1,000. Okay.
Right.
When you first did the ad, you might not think that you had super success. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I got 50 people and I spent, 10 times that or whatever. I'm just using that.
Right.
That's rough numbers.
Yeah.
But down the road, the value of that customer has exploded, right? So
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
know that that can happen. And it's
Right.
really sweet when you can track it.
Yeah, it is
That was my
awesome. You can track it in different ways. You can tag them. You could have a separate like list dedicated or a separate landing page just for Facebook ads so that when they opt in through that, then they're kind of tagged through the list kind of thing. There's UTM links. There's lots of ways you can really track this. And that's where I think people give up too quickly and say it's not working. The other thing you have to consider too is, what else can you offer them? If they didn't buy that one thing, what else might they buy? They might have gotten on that webinar for a different, one little piece of that, and maybe they decided, well, that course wasn't good, but actually, you know what? Half-day training, half-day virtual training, or a one-on-one consulting is really actually what I realize I need. And so make sure that you're making different offers within that too.
Yeah, such a great point. The point of it is really that you can't just assign a success rate to one piece of it, because your
Yeah,
success with that person might happen, months down the road.
right.
That's the moral to that story. So as we are picking our winners for today, we'll put those up on the screen in just a moment. But Andrea, where can people find you if they want to learn more about Facebook
Yeah,
ads and more about you
yeah.
and follow your journey with your comedy in particular?
Yeah. Yeah. So my site is at andreavahl.com, AndreaVahl.com. I do have a tab on there for my stand-up comedy if you're interested in watching a few clips of that. I also am on Facebook at Andrea Vahl Inc. So it's facebook.com/Andrea Vahl Inc. And then, YouTube. Yeah, youtube.com/Andrea Vahl. There's a little section of my comedy there as well. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And so today we're going to be giving away your book. And where's
Yeah.
the best place for them to find that if they don't win today?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's a great. Yeah. Oh, you've got it on the screen. You're so good.
yeah.
Yes, that that is available at Amazon. You can order that, and I also have in the book. It talks about a free walkthrough demo that you can get too, and some other free checklists that you can get as a bonus to the book when you get it. So go grab that if you get the book, because the walkthrough is super helpful. It really just goes beginning to end, all the little settings in there that you need to know, and go grab that.
Awesome. Okay, so our ring light winner is Isabel
Oh,
Baker. So Isabel, if you go up
yay.
to the little message button, I think you're here on Facebook. If you will drop in or send us your mailing address, we will get that out to you ASAP. And then we have Desiree is the webcam cover. So Desiree, Renee, if you will do the same, if you'll send us your mailing address, we'll get that in the mail to you ASAP. And the book winner is Paul Kirkpatrick. Yay, Paul. I'm so excited that you won. I think you're going to love Andrea's book. So same, if you'll send us your mailing address, we will get the book in the mail to you. And I know we have 3 easel winners. So let's just drop. So we got the book winner, easel winners. There we go. Sherry Lynn Stewart, Irene Ark. I hope I say that correctly,
Uh-huh.
Irene, and then Sandy Bates. So if you guys, all we need from you is an email address. But same thing, if you will go up to the little message button on Facebook and send us a message, we will send us your email address. We will get your easel.com account set up. Congrats on winning 3 months
That's cool.
of easel.com, because it is a great little tool. I
That's
think you're going to
awesome.
love it.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thank you, Andrea, for being with us
Thank
today, sharing
you.
your genius with us. Do we have any last minute questions? I think we would have probably pulled those up by now. So I think we're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I
All
mean, my
right.
message really is just to keep testing, keep trying and keep testing. I often see wildly different results, and sometimes a difference of like $10 in cost per lead or cost whatever. So just by testing a few different things, you can dramatically improve your results. So that's my overall message for the whole
Yeah.
session.
I love it. I am in total agreement. I think testing is the key to lowering our customer acquisition costs for sure, or increasing our sales. I mean, technically, I guess they're one and the same, but
Yeah.
still. Um, Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And For
Okay.
everybody who spent some time with me today and with Andrea today, thank you guys. I know time is one of your most valuable assets. I hope you learned something that you can take back into your businesses. Take care of yourselves, keep yourself safe, and God bless.